So thankful, everyone. Much love to you. Just got done with a really powerful weekend workshop here in Missoula, Montana. Strongest one yet. And just really thankful for each one of you that was here, and for those that wanted to be here, that were sending your love and intent. We were sending the workshop love out to you, and I hope you received that. And we just got into a lot of silence and a lot of laughter, and there were a lot of tears. And it's just really an honor. I just want to extend my gratitude to everyone that watches my channel, that's helped this to become possible. A lot of new people coming into this work, and yeah, to those of you that have helped me to reach others, like Alec Zek and Kelly Brogan and Jason Bashirs. I really appreciate all these opportunities to reach other people, because with every group comes a new uh, type of person that wants to learn the shamanic dreaming arts, and a lot of people are not quite sure what it is, and it's a mysterious thing to enter into. And there's people that have been doing it quite a while now, and it's just getting really strong. And Montana's a very powerful place, so I'm glad you guys could come here. And we'll be doing it again in August if any of you feel called to check it out. I know a lot of people are going to be coming back because it was such a strong time. Yeah, but just so many incredible feelings to process, and I got to do a lot of one-on-one sessions with people after the workshop, and we were out in the mountains on the third day, and yeah, a lot happened there with the trees. We got into some really cool ways of communicating with nature and doing witness work and tree talk. I had a breakthrough working with a particular tree. Um, but these are strong days. Our lives are really, those of us that are looking at things and learning to slow time down and get silent and explore what it means to put yourself in a trance with shamanic movements or whatever, gazing. We got to do some really powerful gazing at the floor in the venue we were at. It was very psychedelic. It's still very much present with that floor because of how significant of a shift we were in, and being able to apply that to the gazing side of things. But yeah, just so many incredible discussions, and people really getting to understand the challenges that they're in, and coming up with practical and magical ways to navigate them. Group intent is really, it's a real thing, and there's so much potential. So we get to kind of take that energy with us when we leave, and we get to spread it out in the places that we all go to. So we're not all meant to live in one place. It's really powerful to travel, come together, and create, build, grow, intend, and then see, and then be part of that support system that wants us to continue. When you receive that love and support, and you invest in yourself in this way, yeah, real magic does present itself, because the universe wants to take care of us. It wants to assist us, guide us, and often we're not able to listen and receive that guidance because we have an idea of what we think it's supposed to be, and so we're not able to necessarily listen to what our soul purpose is being presented. And so a path of heart is not one that you manifest, it's one that you learn to acquiesce to. It presents itself. It makes you feel a certain way, and when you learn how to work with feelings, and the talking and the reason, the 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 overthinking, it just no longer serves you, and you move into the dreaming, the feeling, the seeing side of things, and your intuition becomes super strong. So we get to play with the power of being thankful for your existence and how that affects then what is presented to you in your life. So gratitude really does make all the difference in the world. And even if it's not super strong, any little bit of it makes a big difference. So I've shared this probably, but my yoga teacher told me to kiss your hammer. I was really struggling with work. I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. My body was hurting. There was just a lot of stress. But I started kissing my hammer every morning. Take it out of my tool bag and hold it, and it worked. It worked to reset the intention. So whatever job you have, if it's it's okay to do these things that aren't typically practiced and see what happens. And if you're doing it in a way that's not, if you're sort of not able to actually enter into the process of making that action meaningful, then it won't have any meaning. So we are very powerful in the placebo side of things. How we perceive the world is very much how it becomes. So we could perceive this place as an infinite realm of eternal beauty, and learn how to perceive that side of things, the funny side, the light side. And silence happens, and you're just realizing this might be your last moment. You're able to sort of take in the intensity by being aware of our mortality. And that's where you bring death in as an advisor and really allow yourself to receive that jolt. And until there's enough jolts, then we all kind of operate from an autopilot program where we take things for granted. There's a way to not take things for granted because you've been so inspired by the psychedelic nature of the creator force. When you learn to communicate with the mother and receive direct sunlight into your being, you learn to open it up and receive it in really potent ways. And that's why I spend a lot of time in the sun, and communicating with the sun is it assists in my recapitulation. It helps me to let go. I fill up with that incredible energy, and it just purifies my field, and things that are no longer needed within my inventory come off, or really beautiful memories from childhood are revealed to me in silence. So recapitulation doesn't even need to be pursued at a certain point, because the memories will come surfacing. And so that's a really exciting thing to understand, is how simple this path can be. And I know the recapitulation can be an elusive concept, and so we try to help people to learn how to do it in the most simple ways. And so, like, Rachel and I had a breakthrough a few years ago when I just guided her in a recapitulation, and I brought it down to just the simplest terms. And you can pick a really peaceful memory, a really beautiful one. It doesn't have to be difficult stuff. And it's just about returning to the moment as best you can, and just being present in that memory, and then being creative with how you allow your essence to return to you. and how to purge anything that you may have taken on that's designed to go back to that person in the scene or into that place. And so these aren't, it's not like you're erasing the past, even though they call it erasing personal history. You're erasing the personal part in that you are no longer like entangled with a limited personality. You become more than that. And so your past is no longer like it, from the Railroad Earth lyrics, there's a song called Seven Story Mountain. And they say, the road that got me here has begun to disappear. And that's what we want to do is be so in the now that what was is it disappears, but it's also accessible. And it becomes magical. You see it almost as if it's somebody else's memories when you when you go back to them. And that's what opens you up to be able to access other people's memories as well, especially if you're working in a lineage. You start to understand things that other people understand because you're connected to them. And the world gets pretty small. There's not a lot of people really doing this. So you become aware of what a rare gift it is to be able to access this kind of understanding and to be able to open your perceptual capacity and engage in dreaming awake practices. I'm not super great at the challenging side of dreaming that Carlos unlocked, but I'm really gifted at the gazing and the dreaming awake stuff. What Florinda Donner Grouse said is that dreaming awake is the ultimate audacity. And so having hitchhiked and traveled this realm in alone and learned how to stay in my silence for long periods of time, I got to unlock a lot of adventure, and I gained a lot of appreciation, and I fell in love, and that love is growing. And so there's an indifference and a detachment that becomes necessary to handle how strong the feelings get. The warrior arts keep you, the warrior arts reveal to you the steps that are needed in order to handle these jolts as they get stronger. And as an electrical creature, you become capable of grounding so strongly, so you become so anchored that this energy can move through you without causing any problems. So we do want to be very realistic about how grounded we are, and everyone gets grounded differently. Some people really struggle with the concept and they really resist the idea, and then they go to try to do it the way someone else does and it doesn't work. So it's kind of like an intuitive process to figure out what works for you. And that's what's so cool is we're not lab rats, and each person has their own unique way of connecting to source. And that's kind of the way it needs to be, because if you're copying, trying to be like Castaneda or try to do it the way others did it, then it's like more like a religion. And so Carlos asked people to stop reading the books at some point because they were identifying with the books, and it was limiting them. The concepts became fixed, and by then he'd already moved on and was starting to talk about it differently. So there's a way to still work with those books without getting caught in that trap, though. And I think more than ever, those books are a manual to many people who are really having breakthroughs. It's really helpful to have a reference. So being open to your creativity and imagination as a means to make whatever path you're on your own. And that makes all the difference in the world, because the forces that control humanity are very pattern focused and ritual based, and you know try to get people to get all reverent and all serious, and so everything's so sacred that it's easy to control. And that's why the Toltecs are irreverent, and they make fun of themselves, and they don't take anything too seriously at all. But they allow themselves to become very, very focused and direct their intent as if they are the most serious-minded people you would ever meet. So it is a bit of both, right? It's a very fierce state of being. But in order to get to that fierce state, one must deal with the emotional wounding and blockages that exist within, that come from the past. So the recapitulation really does miracles in that you're able to get to the feelings and revisit them. And so being open to the vulnerability of, you never know when you're going to start having an emotional release, and not needing to hide that, can be a huge piece as well, because then the authenticity that we all long for becomes accessible, not needing to be seen in a certain way, being able to be witnessed in moments of weakness or vulnerability, or what would appear to be weakness and vulnerability. In reality, being able to present yourself to the world without needing to be seen differently is a warrior art. Shamans do seek to unbind from their limited ego in that respect, that they move deeply into these authentic states, and society serves as a means to free ourselves just by how we let social power situations in how we let other people's projections keep us from being our true selves. And I still struggle with this, and always have. And I was a chameleon, and that was helpful, but also I absorbed other people's expressions. I'd become kind of a blank slate, and was borrowing from different people's ways of being, because I didn't really have my own. And so it's been really challenging to discover my own, especially with long-term relationships and stuff. You're very affected by other people's perceptions of you. So this work is always tricky. There's always going to be an opportunity to unlearn and unbind, and move into different layers of what's going on the shadow level. And so gaining understanding of how our bodies and how our spirit works, and how to connect on a soul level to the source. These are all challenging and beautiful processes to be in. And if we could find a way to be thankful for what is happening, because things could be so much worse than they are. Like, so whatever's challenging in our lives, it just knowing how much worse it could be, and even maybe going and helping someone who has things much worse off than we do, that could be huge at the right time in your life. I trained for very many years with teachers, and was assisted in the way that I'm assisting people now. And so I'm just passing the baton in that respect, but I'm doing it in my own way. I made it my own, and I found things out, that I don't think my teachers did, and that's the whole point. I want people that learn from me to go on to discover the moreness, um, and that everyone has holes in their consciousness and everyone has a piece of the puzzle. We're all conduits of eternity, and we can develop a relationship with intent. And shamans go on adventures to discover intent, and intent is also called spirit. Um, we are projections of the dark sea of awareness, and we are here to gain experience, and every new or expansive breakthrough that each person has benefits the whole. So rather than copy people, where the dark sea of awareness is seeking individuals that are unbinding from social patterns and moving into hopefully brand new discoveries, new feelings, new ways of interacting with this realm. The Toltec stuff is incredible, but the history of it is pretty tricky. The sorcerers of the past they moved their summage point to positions of perception that were outside of the human range, and they did unspeakable things. And so what the new seers were able to do was to clean up and take all the beneficial things that were learned from these really daring creatures and get really clear on how dangerous the pitfalls are in moving one's perception, and how to not end up outside of the human range and not get seduced by the power, and or misuse that power. And so they're, rather than become powerful in this stream, Toltecs seek to save their power for their afterlife and take very little from this place. And especially discover, that what you do to others will be done to you. How you treat people will you are not separate from that in which you are speaking to. So when you say something to someone or do something to someone, it impacts you and everyone and them on some level. And it's just a matter of being able to heal that, or come clear and go back to junior high and think about anyone that you were mean to, or anyone that you intentionally tried to scare or intimidate, or you were in pain and then they happened to be there in a moment where some part of you was sort of vulnerable to the flyer's mind, and shit got tricky, right? And so we're all learn about ourselves in really difficult situations, and how susceptible we are to these forces that can come in and sort of hijack our wounded parts and get us to do things. And then, but that's how we find out how vulnerable we are. Therefore, that's how we learn to go through the process of recapitulating and clearing the past and forgiving ourselves and others. I was woken up at 12 years old by my sister's boyfriend, and 2 in the morning. He said, "Come on, man, I'm going to teach you how to drink." And it just was a matter of time before that just escalated intensely. So I was going for it pretty hard, in junior high. I was hanging out with much older people, and had become pretty adventurous in my exploration with medicines and drugs and systems, and people and selling medicines and all that. But it was powerful to do, because by 16 I was sober and celibate and training in shamanism, and so it wasn't long lived, and I'm not at odds with the fact that this man did this um, at all. You know, it doesn't mean I wouldn't talk shit to him if I ever run into him, because everyone deserves an honest reflection of their actions. So this isn't some pacifist thing where you just forgive everybody, and you have to go through each stage of feeling any anger, resentment, confusion. If you try to skip that stuff and spiritualize it, then it'll get stuck. And so just that part that's kind of discovered, right, is that you can't skip steps. You can definitely do some really cool work when you learn to get silent, and you can cover a lot of ground in the recapitulation by going directly to the cellular level if you're kind of psychedelic enough to stay in that non-linear place. So a lot of really powerful healing can happen in huge chunks when one is very, very focused and very light, but grounded enough to handle the shifts and the healings. But I think one will have to do a slower life review at some point. It's hard to do the traditional recapitulation because we are much more distracted than before, and so I recommend being creative with it, have fun with it. Anything you can get done will boost you to be able to do more, so whatever's coming to you, just work with that. Magical passes or any shamanic movements that break up stagnant energy in the field and redistribute it so that you can utilize it in more productive ways. They make the biggest difference, because it's a little embarrassing to do them. Sometimes it's confronting. The repetition of them can be, the linear mind can get offended, and that's how you get out of the linear mind, is to just keep doing them. And so they're very, very magical. They very much work. The dreaming gates are very real. These are validated things. I know they can't be proven under a microscope, but that's okay. We don't need that. We don't need others to believe us. And that's where the freedom lies, is that you can go on your own path. You don't need people to understand what you're doing. And when you're no longer letting other people's projections or how they perceive you interfere with your intuition, then you start to heal, and your natural mind becomes more accessible. You're less in that phantom mode, and you're more in the becoming authentic. Toltecs say we're in a phantom world, and until we are able to exit this particular layer of the dream and walk in and out of here, we're still bound to the phantom world, and therefore are still phantoms according to the Toltecs. But we are seeing through the deceptions in ways that even shamans aren't. And so, this whole thing it's a very, very challenging environment to operate in. Even the tribes in the Amazon and stuff, if you were to be fortunate to be welcomed and to live with them, there's still the forces that interfere with humanity are still interfering with them. Not in the way that it is with us, like they are pretty much disease free, but they're, if you read Shabano, and understand how shamanic men interact with the women and the way the power dynamics are playing out, there's still a lot of unresolved shadow wounding inside of the survival of these tribes. And there are hungry ghost like aspects that are playing out. And we just want to not get in this mindset that this place is the problem and that the jungle is where it's all at or anything. It just doesn't work that way. And in Shabono, or what Florinda Donner did when she came back to the States was brought the jungle with her. So she lived in an empty apartment in Los Angeles and brought the power of the jungle in there, so she could see the walls were covered in the shadows of all the foliage. And she was able, just like I kept that floor that we were working with this weekend. That floor is now with me. I can take it with me wherever I go. She took the jungle with her. And so there's a time and a place to live in an empty home, maybe, or to just empty your room and just feel the emptiness of things and fill it with your intent instead of objects. She slept on the floor. Being able to be a minimalist is huge. Doesn't mean you have to be, just knowing that you can. So exploring that, Sufism or whatever it is that gives you a platform in which you can start to recognize how domesticated you are and how to rewild by becoming liberated from the things that normally are a little bit entrapping. The security of money can be a real huge one. But we also want to learn to be able to receive and de-armor and welcome abundance and on all the levels, and learn to work with these energies, these tools. Money can be very heavy for people. It weighs them down, keeps them from being creative and free in the way that they need to in order to be lucid. And so as long as you're being honest with yourself, then there's ways to interact with it all. Much love, friends. So much gratitude. Can't wait to see you all in the near future. Take care.